What you are looking at is also looking at you. Your reality is not what you see, it is what your energy commands you to see. Every thought, every emotion, every doubt is focusing an invisible lens, and that lens completely changes what occurs around you. You think you choose what you observe, but what you observe transforms according to who you are when you are looking at it. This audiobook is not a simple explanation. It is an awakening, an initiation into the real power of the observer. Here, you will finally understand why everything changes when you change, and why attention is the master command of existence. You don't need to understand quantum physics. You only need to understand that your consciousness is not separate from the world. You don't see reality. You create it with your presence. Prepare to open the most forgotten portal of the human being, the one that converts your eyes into the door through which abundance, love, and the life you have always wanted enter. Welcome to the energy of the observer, where looking will no longer be the same as seeing. Have you ever lost your keys, searched for them throughout the house? You checked the same drawer over and over again, and only when you calmed down did they appear right in front of you. It's not coincidence. It's a profound message. The world doesn't show you everything it has. It only shows you what you are ready to see. When you search with anxiety, you see chaos. When you search with presence, the answer appears. That's how reality works. It's not complete until you observe it. Your gaze, your energy, your intention are what give it form. This is not just a metaphor. It is a truth that science has already confirmed. In the deepest part of reality, everything is movement, possibility, vibration, and those possibilities are ordered according to how you look at them. When you focus your attention on something, you are activating it. You are bringing it to form, as if your consciousness turned on a light over a scene, and that scene comes to life only by being observed. That's why many people live trapped in the same problems, not because the world wants to punish them, but because they keep looking from the same emotion, from the same story, from the same fear. It's like always putting the same channel on the television and expecting the program to change. If you don't change the frequency of your gaze, you will continue seeing more of the same. Reality is not out there. It is occurring here in your perception, in your way of looking, in your attention. The universe is like a mirror that doesn't return what you want. It returns what you believe, what you focus on, what you feel with strength. That's why there are people who in the midst of chaos see opportunity, while others, even surrounded by blessings, only see lack. It's not the world that changes, it's the observer. You are that observer. And this audiobook is an initiation so that you remember the power you have always had, the ability to change your life, not by forcing the external, but by retraining your way of looking. Because every time you change your attention, the world transforms with you. And it doesn't matter how many times you have been told otherwise. From today, you can start to see differently and therefore live differently. In the following chapter, you're going to discover how a simple experiment in a laboratory broke all the rules of logic, demonstrating that observing is not just looking, it is creating. The universe is not what it seems, and the clearest proof of it did not come from a temple or a sacred book, but from a laboratory. There, some particles of light, the smallest that our eyes can imagine, decided to behave in a strange, incomprehensible, almost magical way. They called it the double-slit experiment, but in reality it was a cosmic ceremony, a silent revelation that knocked down the pillars of logic, because those particles, when no one was observing them, moved like free waves, multiple, infinite. But when someone looked at them, they behaved as if they had to make a single decision, a single form, a single path. That means something so powerful that even today most have not understood it. The act of observing changes the result. What was infinite becomes unique. What was possibility becomes reality only because someone is looking at it, as if the universe were waiting for instructions, and those instructions were your eyes, your consciousness, your energy. This experiment was not just a scientific test, it was a mirror of the human soul, because you too are a slit through which thousands of possibilities pass every second. Possibilities of success, of failure, of love, of fear, of wealth, of abandonment, and every time you observe one of them with attention, the others collapse, disappear, vanish like smoke. Do you see it now? It's not that the universe gives you what you deserve. It's that it activates what you observe. Your mind is not a simple witness. It is a quantum flashlight, a creation tool. Every thought you hold, every emotion you don't release, every image you repeat is projecting a frequency, and that frequency acts like a command, a subtle order that reorganizes matter. Quantum physics explains it with formulas, but you don't need formulas, you need consciousness. If you are living something over and over again, if the same thing happens to you in different bodies, jobs, or cities, it's not a curse, it's your internal observer holding the same scene, the same script, the same mental movie, because you keep looking from the same wound, from the same belief, from the same energy. And then the question is not, what do I want to change out there? But from where am I looking? Who am I when I observe my life? Because if you change, what you look at also changes. If you elevate your energy, the universe collapses new particles, new paths, new answers. The double slit is not out there, it's here, now, in every decision you make when observing yourself, in every thought you decide to hold, in every silence in which you choose to see with the eyes of the soul instead of with the eyes of fear. In the following chapter, you are going to discover what occurs right after, the moment when reality collapses under your gaze, and how you can use that instant so that the universe selects the highest version of you. Imagine you are in a store with 10 doors, and behind each door there is a different version of your life. In one, you are rich. In another, you are sick. In another, you are surrounded by love. In another, you are alone. All those versions exist at the same time, but only one is activated, and it's the one you choose to observe. That choice is not always conscious. Many times it occurs by habit, by fear, by beliefs you have dragged for years, and then without realizing it, you always enter through the same door. You always see the same version of you, and you believe that is the only real one. But it's not the only one. It's just the one you collapsed with your attention. In quantum physics, they call it the collapse of the wave function. But in simple words, it means that of all the possibilities that exist, you make one real by observing it. The question is, are you observing from the highest version of you or from the most limited? From fear, from the past, from the I can't? There are people who, upon receiving a medical diagnosis, observe the disease as a sentence, and that gaze makes it stronger. But others with the same news decide to observe the possible health, the healing process, the body that can change, and their energy changes the result. There are those who look at their poverty as something fixed, and their gaze becomes a wall, but others observe it as a stage, as a starting point. And that gaze opens paths, opportunities, miracles that were not there until they were seen with faith, because that's what faith does. Observe a possibility that still cannot be seen and keep it alive until it collapses into reality. That's why it's not a religious act, it's a creative act. When you choose to look with certainty, you are giving form to a universe that only existed as potential. And that universe begins to form piece by piece, step by step, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly, but always with precision. Every day you are collapsing universes with your eyes, with your emotions, with your thoughts, and you do it even when you don't know it. Like when you enter a room and feel that something is not right, or when you think of someone and that person calls you. It's not coincidence. It's your attention connecting with a network of possibilities that is activated by being observed. You are not someone small in a big world. You are the one who holds the world you see. And that world changes with you, not because you force it, but because your way of observing invites it to transform like a seed that only sprouts when someone believes in it, when someone waters it, when someone looks at it as if it were already a flower. In the following chapter, you are going to discover that it's not just about collapsing universes, but about observing with consciousness, because your eyes can build, but they can also destroy. And what you feed with your attention grows for better or worse. Your eyes don't just serve to see, they are also a kind of invisible ray that transforms what they touch. Every time you look at something, you are nourishing it with your energy, and that energy can be like the sun that makes things grow, or like the ice that stops life. Everything depends on where you are observing from, because it's not just about what you look at, but about the emotion you carry when looking. Think of a plant. If every day you look at it with contempt, if you think it's worthless, if you believe it's not going to grow, that plant feels it and begins to wither. But if you observe it with care, with love, with the certainty that it can flourish, something changes in its energy and it begins to live in another way. The same happens with people, with situations, and with your own life. Your gaze can be a poison or a blessing. When you look at your problems from fear, what you are doing is feeding them, giving them more space in your mind, in your energy, in your field of reality. And the universe that responds to vibration understands that this is what is important to you and gives you more. When you observe with judgment, you become part of the conflict instead of being part of the solution. And when you look at yourself with guilt, you are condemning your future to repeat the mistakes of the past. Look at how this is seen in real life. Someone makes a mistake and repeats it 1,000 times in their head how badly they did it. They judge themselves, punish themselves, lock themselves in that image of, I am not enough, and without realizing it, they begin to observe the whole world from that filter. And of course, everything they see confirms their wound, but there is another person who also makes a mistake and looks at themselves with compassion, with learning, and decides to observe the same fact as an opportunity to grow. That person doesn't repeat the cycle, they transform it. The difference is not in what occurs, but in how what occurs is looked at. And that how you decide every day, every moment, every time you open your eyes to look at your story, your relationships, your economy, your body, your past, or your future. That's why this chapter is a warning, but also a promise. Because if you have the power to curse with your gaze, you also have the power to bless, to look at your bank account with gratitude, even if it's still empty, to look at a difficult person with compassion, even if they hurt you, to look at yourself in the mirror and see a soul under construction, not a broken identity. And when you look like that with consciousness, with love, with purpose, everything that seemed stagnant begins to move. In the following chapter, we are going to look inward, because many times you cannot observe with clarity, not because the world is dark, but because your eyes are wounded. And it's time to heal that lens so you can see life as someone who has already been freed from pain would. Imagine you are wearing stained glasses. It doesn't matter how beautiful what you have in front of you is. As long as you don't clean those crystals, you will see everything distorted. That's how your mind works when you have been hurt. Everything you observe first passes through the filter of what you lived, of what you didn't heal, of what you believed about yourself in the midst of pain. That's why it's not unusual for many people, even surrounded by opportunities, to only see threats, even surrounded by love, to only feel abandonment. When you were a child, someone ignored you, shouted at you, made you feel you were not worth enough, and that emotion did not disappear. It remained in your internal lens like a stain that now conditions how you see the world. So when a boss speaks to you seriously, you see it as criticism. When a partner distances themselves, you feel it as rejection. When a goal takes time to be fulfilled, you take it as proof that you can't. But it's not the world, it's your wound that is looking. And here, something deeper occurs. Every time you look from that wound, you confirm the same story, and by confirming it, you strengthen it. And by strengthening it, it becomes more real. That's how the loop is formed, the invisible cycle in which you live. The same patterns over and over again, different people, different places, but the same ending. Not because you are cursed, but because you are observing from a pain that has not been understood. That's why this chapter is a necessary pause, not to look outside, but to look inside. From where are you seeing your life? From trust or from abandonment? From fullness or from scarcity? From faith or from fear? Because if your internal observer is wounded, everything you see is tinged with threat, even the good, even the new, even what arrives to help you. But here is the hope. The lenses can also be cleaned, not suddenly, not with magic, but with presence, with consciousness, with love towards you. You can start talking to that internal observer as you would talk to a child who was alone for a long time. You can tell them, you no longer have to look from pain, you no longer have to protect yourself all the time. You can trust, you can see with clarity again, and little by little you begin to see things you didn't see before, opportunities that were always there, people who do love you, paths you hadn't considered, not because they appeared suddenly, but because by healing your way of looking, you collapse a different universe, one where you are no longer running but creating. In the following chapter, you will learn how to retrain your attention to look with intention, not just to react, but to design your day, your energy, and your future. Because the gaze, when it becomes conscious, becomes pure power. Your attention is like an invisible drone that flies over your life, and where you decide to point it, that's where reality lands. If you direct it only toward the rubble, you will only see ruins. If you focus it toward the uncertain, you will only see fog. But if you elevate it, if you place it just above your desires, your possibilities, what has not yet been born but vibrates within you, then you begin to see the complete map, the real landscape, with roots that before seemed closed and now open because you decided to look from above, not from the wound. Most people don't know where their mental drone is pointing. They let it fly by default, they hand it over to fear, to the media, to the usual habits. And that's why they live trapped in a reduced, low, confused vision, as if they could only see what is in front of their feet. But you are not here to continue looking from the ground. You are here to elevate your focus and retrain it until it becomes a sacred tool of creation. Retraining your attention is like teaching that drone to fly with intelligence, not by reflex but by purpose. When you wake up and decide what you are going to think about first, you are taking control. When you choose to imagine the day as a sequence of blessings instead of a chain of obstacles, you are programming your energetic lens in the universe, which does not respond to what you say, but to what you focus on, begins to collaborate with you. Before sleeping, you can also redirect your internal drone, close your eyes, and point it toward the highest vision of you. It doesn't matter if you don't know how you're going to get there. What matters is that you look with clarity where you want to land. You can imagine how it feels to live with peace, with freedom, with abundance, and allow that image to envelop you completely. Not as a dream, but as a reality that has already begun to organize itself only because you decided to see it. During the day, every instant becomes an opportunity to refocus when someone interrupts you. Are you going to point your attention to anger or to understanding when something doesn't go as expected? Are you going to focus on the problem or on the teaching when you talk to yourself? Do you do it from complaint or from recognition? Each of those choices moves your energy. And what moves your energy moves the world. Your attention is much more powerful than you think, but you have to be willing to direct it with discipline, with tenderness, with intention. Because if you don't do it, someone else will do it for you, and you will end up living in the reality that someone else chose, not in the one you came to create. In the following chapter, you are going to discover that you can also use your attention to turn off the unnecessary, to silence what drains, what contaminates, what confuses, because sometimes stopping looking is also a way to move forward. Imagine your attention is like a lamp in the middle of a theater wherever you point the light. That's where the scene develops. But everything that remains in the shadow disappears, not because it doesn't exist, but because you decided not to illuminate it. That's how your consciousness works. Every time you choose not to look at something, you are taking away its power. You are cutting off the energy supply that kept it alive. And that decision that seems small can change everything. Many believe that ignoring is a way of running away, but in reality, ignoring with consciousness is an act of power. It's not about closing your eyes to pain, but about stopping feeding what you no longer want to grow. Because what you observe, you create, but what you ignore vanishes. Like a bonfire that goes out when no one feeds it, like a wound that begins to close when you no longer scratch its scab with repetitive thoughts. Think of social media, of the news, of negative comments. If every time something chaotic occurs, you run to look, your energy enters that chaos, you connect to that vibration, and without knowing it, you are collapsing a version of reality you don't need. But if you choose not to look, if you decide to use your focus as a sacred filter, then you are protecting your field. You are honoring your attention like someone who decides which seed to give water to and which to simply let dry. This also applies to the internal. When a difficult emotion appears, you can look at it with respect, but you don't need to make it the protagonist. You can tell it, I see you, but I don't follow you. You can observe your fear without making it your teacher. You can feel sadness without narrating your whole life from it. Ignoring with wisdom is not denying, it's choosing what you give the privilege of occupying your gaze. And here comes the quantum key. Because in a universe of infinite possibilities, each focus you choose closes thousands of paths and illuminates only one. That means that when you decide not to observe the conflict, you are activating its opposite. When you choose not to look at the error, you are allowing the solution to flourish. When you stop observing lack, you begin to reveal the abundance that was hidden right next to it, waiting to be seen. That's why the art of ignoring is as important as the art of observing. And it's an art that is trained with practice, with patience, and with respect toward yourself. You don't have to give your opinion about everything. You don't have to look at everything. You don't have to give space to every thought that appears. You can choose, and every time you do, your energy strengthens, your mind clears, your heart is freed. In the following chapter, you are going to discover that your eyes don't just see, they also speak, that your way of looking transmits energy, and that every time you observe with gratitude, certainty, or clean desire, you are sending a vibrational message to the universe that cannot be ignored. Your eyes don't just serve to see, they also emit signals. They are like living antennas that transmit energy, intention, desire. Every time you look at something with true gratitude, you are blessing it, you are activating it, you are multiplying it, and every time you look at it with complaint, with judgment, with fear, you are closing it, freezing it, pushing it away from you. Because your eyes have a language that is not said with words, but the universe understands it with precision. Think of a person who looks at you with tenderness. They don't need to say anything for you to feel their affection, or someone who observes you with harshness. You don't need to hear them to know they are judging you. That's how powerful the energy that comes out of the eyes is. But the most important thing is that it also directs itself toward life itself. When you look at your bank account with anguish, that energy communicates and money resists. But if you observe it with love, even if there isn't much, a channel opens, a frequency that begins to invite abundance. Looking is not the same as visualizing. Visualizing is imagining. Looking is feeling. And when you look at something as if it were already real, you are sealing an energetic agreement. You are saying, this already belongs to me, this is already mine in vibration, this is already on its way. And that security, that silent certainty becomes a clear frequency that organizes matter. Because deep down, the universe does not respond to what you desire. It responds to how you look at it. When you observe with envy, you are pushing away what you admire. When you observe with anxiety, you are reinforcing absence. But when you look with clean desire, with genuine love, with an internal sensation that this is already touching you, then your energy aligns and signals begin to appear. People, opportunities, not because you are forcing them, but because your frequency became compatible with what you are observing. You can practice this in small things, by looking at your food and thanking it before eating, by looking at your reflection in the mirror and sending yourself respect instead of criticism, by looking at the sky and saying in silence, thank you for another day to continue creating. That invisible language leaves marks on energy like footprints that the universe recognizes, like vibrational codes that activate doors that were closed, not because you didn't have the key, but because you hadn't looked with the correct intention. You are not just someone who observes the world, you are a transmitter. And each of your gazes is a prayer, a signal, an energetic declaration. If you learn to look with clarity, with purpose, with love, you don't need to shout your desires because your energy is already saying everything. In the following chapter, you are going to discover what occurs when that gaze reaches its highest level, when you stop seeing from the ego and begin to look from unity, from the soul, from a place where what you see and what you are no longer separated. There is a moment when you stop looking at the world as something external and begin to observe it as part of you. You no longer see from need, nor from control, nor from the desire to change everything, but from a profound understanding, silent, powerful. In that moment, your gaze becomes alchemical. It transforms, not because you force it, but because you have remembered that your consciousness is what gives form to what you see. An illuminated observer does not need to manipulate their reality because they have understood that their reality responds to their internal state. They no longer seek to convince the universe, nor repeat affirmations without meaning, nor visualize compulsively to obtain something, because they know that what they seek is already connected to them, and then they observe it with anticipated gratitude, with vibratory certainty, like someone who watches a flower grow without needing to shout at it to bloom. True alchemy begins when you stop resisting what occurs and begin to look at it as part of a larger order, as a reflection of something you can understand and transmute. It's not about accepting injustice or giving up. It's about observing everything from a higher consciousness where even the error, the pain, the apparent setback are part of the plan that your soul chose to awaken. This type of gaze is not learned in books. It is revealed when you decide to see beyond form, when you choose to look at a difficult person, and instead of seeing the conflict, you see the wound behind. When you look at a loss and find a portal of growth. When you look at the one who betrayed you and see someone trapped in their own fear. That gaze is not weak. It's the most powerful of all because it doesn't need the world to change to be activated. The illuminated observer does not judge what they see. They embrace it, honor it, and by doing so transform it. Because judgment binds, but consciousness liberates. And by looking from unity, from connection with everything, from the understanding that you are not separated from what you observe, then your energy stops clashing with reality and begins to merge with it, like fire that doesn't fight with air, but transforms it with its heat. That is alchemy. Not a trick to get things, but a state in which your vibration changes the quality of what you look at, not because you control it, but because you bless it. And by blessing it, you elevate it, you clean it, you return it to its original form, which was always abundance, love, and perfect order. In the following chapter, you are going to learn how to look as if what you desire were already real. How to hold the gaze of someone who doesn't wait for signs. Because they are already vibrating in certainty, and that's why the universe has no choice but to respond. This is the moment where everything you have heard begins to integrate. The moment when you are no longer the same person who started this journey. Because now you know that your gaze is not passive, it's creative. That you are not trapped in a fixed reality, but collapsing possibilities with every thought, with every emotion, with every decision you make when observing. Now you know that looking is much more than seeing. It's choosing, it's invoking, it's activating a version of the universe that responds directly to your internal state. And that's why the most powerful act you can do is look as if what you desire were already real. Because when you hold that gaze with firmness, with faith, with calm, the universe has no choice but to align, because you don't respond as someone who asks, but as someone who already possesses. And that frequency is not weak, it's not delusional, it's magnetic, clear, unstoppable. You can apply this in every corner of your life. When you get up, observe your day as if it were already blessed, even if you don't see results yet. When you look at your body, observe it as if it were already healthy, strong, and balanced, even if there are still symptoms. When you think about money, observe it as if it were already entering your life from multiple sources, even if your account doesn't reflect it yet. Because that's the key, look from the reality you want to create, not from the one you fear repeating. And if you stumble, if you look again from lack, if fear takes you by surprise, it doesn't matter, because now you know how to return, you know how to retrain your gaze, you know how to silence judgment and return to the center, where the sacred observer you are can always decide again. Because this power is not an external gift, it's an internal ability that no one can take from you. Everything you learned here lives within you. The gaze that creates the world, the experiment that responds to your intention, the power to ignore what drains, the ability to look with love, with certainty, with unity. They are not pretty ideas. They are real tools to transform your present and write a different future with the eyes of the awakened soul. So if you ever doubt again, if the world seems chaotic again, if you forget what you are, just stop. Breathe and remember, you are not seeing reality. You are creating it with every gaze, with every emotion, with every thought you decide to hold. And in that instant, you will have remembered the true secret, that you don't just inhabit this world, you are looking at it, and that's why you are transforming it. And if you made it this far, it was not coincidence. There are doors that only open when the soul is ready, and you just crossed one of them, but there is still more. There are other books, other paths that expand what you have felt in every word of this audiobook and take you deeper. Listen to the 7 laws of the rich wizard and awaken the hidden code of abundance without effort. And don't forget the law of the broken mirror, because your reality will not change until you change the way you reflect in it. Both are the next step. And if you are here, it's because you are already ready to see beyond. If this message resonated with you, if you felt something shift inside as you listened, don't let this transformation end here. Subscribe to this channel right now so you can continue receiving more content that will elevate your consciousness and expand your power as an observer. Hit that subscribe button, activate the notification bell, and join this community of awakened souls who are choosing to see differently, to live differently, and to create a reality that reflects their highest vision. Your journey has just begun, and we have so much more to share with you. Subscribe now, and let's continue this powerful journey together.